It says go live. It says you're live.
All right, so when you go live, you're live. So start talking and try to keep it under 60 minutes. And
Under
then when you're done, just push end. And then if it tells you to post it to the YouTube, say yes. Or call me once you push end.
Okay, so I'm live now.
Did you push start?
Yeah, and I'm
You're
talking.
live. Yep,
Okay,
you're live.
all
All
right.
right.
I don't know if I can hear myself. Hello, I'm Tommy. Uncle Tommy Speaks, a part of the 50 Shades of Red podcast, and we're live here. And one of the topics I want to talk about tonight is employers and the bullshit that they put us through. Um, the employers that and the bullshit that they put us through. A lot of times we are on a job where um, employers either want to treat us unfairly or well, let me start from the beginning. I'm with an employer and we do contract cleaning and we're sort of a partnership kind of thing. And this employer hired someone unbeknownst to me, and they stole on the job and they lost some of the contracts that we were using. So that cut my work demand down 50%. And so um, unbeknownst to me, this person we clean commercial locations, and what happens is that um, that person decided to do some shoplifting on one of the locations. So in doing that, um, they were caught, they were arrested, and then I get a call with bad news, and I'm thinking, what's going on? And so I was disclosed as to what's happening. And it's a ripple effect and affects us all. Now we're trying to obtain other contracts as we're doing this, but they're not as lucrative as the contract we lost. It was a very good contract. It was a very um, profitable contract, but it put me out of work 50%. We still have our other contracts, but we just don't have this one. Um, so I was really angry because I was offered other contracts to do, but most of the work we do is outside the Philadelphia region, and these contracts are a lot weaker, and it's almost not worth getting up to in a cold, starting your cars and trying to make it to these particular venues. Um, and I was expressing that to I'm a minor partner. I was expressing it to my major partner, and they got angry. And because I guess they told the people that's offering the contracts that I would do it without confiding in me first, and they were saying, well, you should have called and this and that. In other words, they made it like it was my fault. Um, and that was kind of and being a person that puts 110% of effort into anything that I do. Um, I really felt as though that I had the rug yanked from underneath me, if that's a pretty good metaphor to use. Because we work hard. Um, we 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 want this to grow as partners. We want to, as in any venture, you want it to take off and blossom. But it wasn't my fault. That my major partner, that was their selection to pick this person without doing background checks and things like that. Um, and the very first day that person worked, they decided to to dishonor the company and dishonor the contract by shoplifting, and it didn't have to be. Um, so I received a call today of why didn't you call me? We wanted to talk about these new contracts and all this. And I said, well, that it's only working like an hour per day, but it's like a almost a 90-minute drive going and coming. And I just thought that that was just too time consuming. And it's just not worth the profit. I do the numbers. And I was telling her this, and I said, listen, I did the numbers and it's just not a fit. But she kind of put the cart before the horse, telling them that I would do it before I even agreed to doing it. So I guess now she has to save face and tell them, I don't have, he's not going to be a part of it. We're not going to accept the contract, so forth and so on. But that's not my fault. Um, and why I'm touching on this topic, I know a lot of people go to work every day and work hard and put their best foot forward into their employment, only to be undercut or have an employer um, um, tell them that they're not happy with this or they're not happy with that. Um, I used to often think, I'd say it this way. I used to often think, long as you have employment, or as long as you are putting bread on the table, so to speak, um, it's there's no need to complain. But it's so many on a job, especially with someone that's pretty much in charge. You have to put up with a whole lot of personalities, and some people run with their titles. Like this, like before we partnered up. Um, she was saying, she's talking about her titles and all of these things. And at the end of the day, my whole attitude is it's really about giving a good work, having a good work ethic, being conscientious, and making money. Um, the in between, such as I'm so and so, and I'm this, and this is, I have my name on this and all of this, I thought wasn't as significant as the effort we put forward to get to, number one, establish a reputation, number two, have that reputation grow, and number three, um, give them a good bang for their buck when we're working there. Um, but we want to also, when you're protecting the name, especially with a company, you want people that's going to respect it. Now, I get it. My background's in behavior. I study behaviors. That's what my degrees are in, and behaviors and therapy and things like that. So um, when I speak to people, when I interview people for a position or to work with us like this, I try to fill them out in certain ways. I'm not saying there's a guarantee that someone will work out, but your turnover ratio, which is you hire people, you train them, and if they don't work out or you have to release them, fire them, or let them go, whatever, um, you want that to be low. You want to put that investment in the people that's going to stick around, that's going to perform adequately. Um, so I ask specific questions. I ask questions like, well, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years with the company or something like that, just to fill them out. Because not everybody's a fit. Not everybody's going to work out for whatever job they pursue, and I get it. But I try to you try to get the best candidates. You want to help folks. Her platform is more, I'll give you a job and see how it works out. Um, I'm not even going to ask because she chases paper or finances a whole lot deeper than I would. Um, and what winds up happening is these incidences that happened recently, like losing the contract. So that put me out of a location. That put other workers out of a location because the company decided this is this is this is not. We look bad. This is not a thing that um, we're into. This shouldn't have happened. So forth and so on. It's a blemish on us as a company. And I was angry, but I understood that part of it wasn't in her hands. But my thinking was that she should have been more thorough with the hiring process, um, because it's a ripple effect. If I do something like that on a job, and that's being a minor partner on one of the facilities that we take care of, We can you can lose the contract, and everybody that you hire should be aware of that. It, you have to communication. I think is essential. You have to talk to people that you employ and figure out where they're at. I'm not saying incidences doesn't come up. I'm not saying that things doesn't happen. Um, but that was a choice that prospective employee made that rippled down into everybody else. You lose not only training time, you lose money, and now we lost that particular contract. And but where I'm going with all of this is that having to pass the buck on to say, well, you can. Why don't we have these other contracts? You need to plug in and do these other contracts when they're just not worth the time, the effort, burning the gas, and things like that. And when I say no, I'm not. I don't want to accept it. You're angry because you're looking at the financial side. I'm looking at the financial side as well, and I'm saying, well, this just really isn't. It just really isn't worth the effort. Imagine going. Imagine traveling 20 miles back and forth to a job you're going to want to work an hour, and the pay's maybe $15, and you're going to spend maybe half of that in gas, and you got to warm your car up, you got to get up and early in the cold and all of this, just 1 hour, and then you got to drive all the way back. She looks at at that being something positive, where I look at that being you're actually putting wear and tear on your vehicles, and I have a new car, and I'm just not looking to beat it up for just an hour in a day, 20 miles here and 20 miles back. It's just no money in that, So I'm going to, in the end, spend more money just to make this happen, so we can keep the contract. And I refused that, and she didn't take it well. Um, Even on some of the sites we clean, one of the sites that I clean, I obviously not going to put it out here. One of the sites that we clean, they had a shrinkage, and for anybody that doesn't know what a shrinkage is, um, it's when the inventory, someone either takes it or they mismanage the books or something like that. So they had a shrinkage, and they had their Manhattan administration come down, and so this I don't work for this for the store that I clean. I work for us, but yet Manhattan superiors came down, chewed the store out, and they want to take it out on a cleaning team and tell us, it's a new protocol, but they want to abuse us verbally as because they're upset for something that is not in our control. And it made for the atmosphere to be very difficult. And I was talking to my senior partner and saying, maybe I shouldn't be on this contract. Maybe we should let it go. But it pays well. And that was her position. She says, listen, it pays well. Why don't you just work it out? See, it'll pass and all of this kind of stuff. Don't take how they spoke to you seriously, so forth and so on. One thing about any employment is that we want an environment that we're comfortable working in. We don't want an environment that we're uncomfortable working in, regardless of the price. Imagine going to a job you can't stand for year after year after year, and you can't stand the job. It may pay decent, but the stress level of handling a job like that, it's just not worthwhile. Um, I've, in doing some therapy, working with people with behaviors, as I discussed as part of my background, alongside of what I do with this cleaning thing. I've talked to people about their environments in the job place, because they're going through stress and things like that. And they tell me, how I can't stand my job, and I wish this would change and all of this. And I think you got to be if you but they're afraid to speak to whoever's in charge, or the management, or the administration, or human resource, or whatever it is, because they don't want to lose the job. But even in the therapy sessions, they talk about how they can't stand it and all of this. And I said, well, that's what stress will kill you. Um, if you stress out often in employment or in anything in life in general, you're gonna live life short term. But to actually get up in the morning, shower, shave, whatever, um, get prepped for work that you really don't like going to. It's hard and it's tough. Um, and I get it. A lot of times it's not easy, especially if the administration changed. I have a friend who is an excellent food prep person for a hospital, and he rose up the ladder. He became um, like a supervisor, like a minor supervisor for the company. They switched hands. In other words, what happened is the company decided to get a new administration, which means they bring in their own people, um, people who are qualified for the job, who have shown conscientious work ethic. They decided to keep, and he was one of those people. But in our sessions, he was telling me, I really don't like this new administration. I said, well, give it a chance. They just they got to fit those pieces in. They got to get to know you. You got to get to orientate to them. They're going to have their own way of doing things, so forth and so on, and just work through it. So he did. He attached himself. They brought in new chefs. They brought in all these new people. Like I said, he's a food prep person. Um, his responsibilities are serving hospital patients and things like that, getting the food ready, timing, and all of this. And he has an excellent work ethic. The guy works way harder than me, and and he's a good dude, you know. And so what happened was the chef, for what I was told by him, the chef has their own method of doing things from where they're coming from, and he has his method, and it kind of clashed, according to him. But and he it was building up to a tension, to a pressure point, I should say. And what wound up happening is that they had a confrontation right there on the job, um, because the chef came from the company that took over the food service part of that job. Um, what wound up happening is that they let him go because they were going to keep their own people. And when I found that out, I found it out through another employee. And when I found that out, another friend that actually works with him, he told me first. He said so and so was canned, and I said really, and he explained the particulars of that. And and then he told me when he saw me, he told me what had happened. Um, that they were trying to that he had I'll call it a rhythm. He had a certain way how he did things, but it was within the parameters of how it was to be prepped. But he's a hard worker, and he had a way of doing things, and he had a system. But they want, when you're not in charge, administration wants you to do it their way. I said, why didn't you make suggestions that will work for the both of you before you before you reacted? It would have been better if you would have sat down with administration and said, "Look, this is how I do it. This is the ideas." And that's either there was a part of it he wasn't telling me, but but my feelings and sympathy for him was for the fact that new administration, you used to working with a system that was working, decided to go with someone new, and then um, sometimes you can adapt, and sometimes they can be abrasive. You can have employers. Uh, they're set in their ways, and they want to wrench you out of your ways to attach to how they do things. And I think the bottom denominator of all of this is that as long as people are getting quality product, whether it's serving food, whether it's whatever, and whatever genre that you're in, as long as you get a quality product, I think that's the most important thing. But sometimes you have employers who they get a title, they make a certain amount of money, and they want to be militant in the way they treat employees. They don't have it takes people skills. It's really I always sympathize with people who interact with the public, especially like police. I know people may knock me for saying this, but you have so many personalities that you have to deal with, or the cashier at the McDonald's or whatever it is. You're going to have that disgruntled person who had some issues and decided to take it out on you, and it takes people skills to know how to handle people that's disgruntled. But with employers, When they get disgruntled, their whole demeanor is I'm the employer. So yeah, I can get angry, I can get mad, I can do this, I can do that, and sometimes unfairly they attack or challenge the employee and take it out on them to want to cause a rift in the system of things going on. Um, and throughout the years, all of the jobs that I've had, and I've had quite a few, especially my family worked. We all worked as children. You had, and I come from an era where you have to work when you're young. There. I mean, you have to be productive, and it instilled in me, and I'm thankful for my parents. God rest their souls, that we were instilled a hard work ethic. My sisters all work hard. My brother works hard. So it's just ingrained in us. Um, but and what's the saddening point of all of this is that even with hard work, sometimes you can get disrespected on the job. You can have someone come in that's new, that's in charge, um, that wants to that either for whatever reason may not like you, or for whatever reason um, they just want to insert themselves as being strict and rigid. And and when you have an atmosphere that's actually working, and someone comes in and wants to change all of it around, it can make for an environment that's just not that's counterproductive. That's just wants employees to actually want to quit that job. Um, I was a McDonald's manager for years, and and upon being hired, the owner said, "Yeah, I had managers here that had such a high turnover ratio that's not fun. That's not even funny because in training someone that's not going to stay, or they're going to steal, or they're going to do certain things, it costs money for that. Employers will tell you that. So I developed the attitude that when I'm interviewing prospective employees, whether it's flipping a burger or whether it's crew chief or whatever it is, sit down and get a feel for people, because we all know in interviews we're going to put our best face on. We're in job interviews. We're going to look proper, and we're going to tell them, yeah, this is the job for me, and so forth and so on. We all do it to gain the employment. We're going to put our best foot forward. So I developed a system of questions when I was hiring then, as to ask them specifics such as, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years, which is probably a standard in a whole lot of human resources. Um, what do you like to do off the clock? Just offbeat questions, because I examine expressions and how people feel, or if I'll make a scenario. If I ask you to do this, would you have a problem doing that, or you have a problem working around certain genders and people of certain backgrounds and things like that. And some of them found that unusual. Some of them found that to be a little bit uncomfortable. And you can't really put a grasp um, on how a person's going to work out. But if you get a feel, then as you make your determination, it's not always about outstanding backgrounds and all that. I've seen college degree people like myself and others, um, with degrees, go into employments, and either it's not a fit for them, or they have a lackluster attitude about working, and then they don't work out, and then the company has to put out put money out to hire someone else and train someone else and this and that. Um, so it's a difficult thing, um, but there's a lot of abuse that goes on job sites. I've worked with someone that they were my boss at that time, and they swear a lot. I mean, it's just who they are. And at first, I didn't really know how to take it. I didn't know if I've done something wrong. I was young then. I didn't know, am I doing something wrong and all of this. But they talk that I don't think in today's generation that a lot of employers can do that, and also depend on the job. And I was pre-warned that this is what they were going to do. This is how they are. Don't take it personally. And I'm thinking, okay, how bad could it be? But to get cursed at, and for another employee to say, well, yeah, the boss, that's just who she is, or who he is, or something like that. Don't take it personally. But it's about the environment. You want to. Be comfortable where you work. You don't want to. We all have feelings. Um we all put up our best face, our best foot forward in our employee, and we want to be respected for that. We don't want to work in hostile environments and uncomfortable jobs because someone has a title and they want to wave it all in your face. I've heard I've watched it on so many places, even on some of the sites I clean. Employee interaction. I'm the manager or I'm the supervisor. They want to throw that in your face. When the bottom denominator is you want to make good sales or put good product out or satisfy customers or things like that. Um, it's nothing like having a bond with your employer that you love coming to work and the job's great and even if the money's not great if the I I've often said I'd rather work in an environment that I'm comfortable at a decent price than uncomfortable at a higher price because you're not going to last and working at a job that's not that you have employees who are abusive verbally or even in any other way um, it weighs in heavily on your health and I'm pretty sure a lot of people may not take that into consideration that the stress level of a job will take you out of here. Um, you can put in 15, 20 years of the job and it'll have its wear and tear and things like that. I have a friend I haven't seen in so many years. Work for SEPTA, and it's not a knock on SEPTA by no means. He's a bus driver, and for about he did it for about 8 months. I say 9 months, and then he applied to the post office. I said, "What about the SEPTA job? Drivers get paid well, from what I hear, things like that." He said, "Tom, the stress level, interacting with the public and getting and supervisors that did this and did that. Wasn't a fit for him, is where he was going with this. And I totally understood, because not everything's for everybody. But on so many levels and so many layers, he was saying, I'm just not comfortable with doing this type of work. Um, and he wasn't comfortable with doing that type of work. And people, he was saying, I said, I know you got a lot of backlash. He said, yeah, people were saying, man, that's a good job. You have a city job, this and that. But it's the particulars. He he was honest with himself to know that he just wasn't the fit for dealing with interacting with the public and the abuse, the verbal abuse and things that he had to take being a driver. It can be extremely stressful. And he didn't and he said some of the administration, they had their certain ways of doing things and he wasn't comfortable with that. Um, so he decided to make a career change. We were younger then, so it was easier. Um, Imagine being in your 50s and having and working somewhere and putting in a lot of time, effort, and sweat and everything else. And then, for instance, and it's not a knock on younger administrations that come in. The example I'm getting ready to express is that I remember applying for a job and the supervisor was a younger individual by a significant amount of years. And human resources asked me would I be uncomfortable with that, and I said no, I would be uncomfortable with that. I've also been asked working would I be uncomfortable working for a female, and I said, well, why would I be? I'm there to do the job. I'm not there. It's not always a you got to partner up with things, and they used to like to go out after work and do things. Um, go to some bar or something like that, and I'm just that's not who I am. So as the job progressed and as the job went on, um, they thought that I went a different route. In other words, where I'm going with this is that they thought that I didn't want to be a part of. I wasn't a team player kind of thing. But I expressed to them, your recreational your recreational habits is something that I wasn't a part of. If we all want to go out and say go to a movie or something like that or whatever, that's fine. They want to go out and get smashed and come back to work hungover and all of that. And that's just that isn't who I am. So some of the employees took a took a took a took it personal, uh, for lack of a better way to say it. They thought that I didn't want to click with them, and in actuality, I didn't. Well, where I'm going with this is the employer also could. They used to. she used to hang with the crew, and after the work was done, they would go out and almost like this is like it's a Super Bowl celebration kind of thing. And I just, they say, "Hey, Tom, you want to come along?" And I'm like, "No, that's not something I want to do." What wound up happening is, because I went the opposite way. I want to go home and do my 8, 10 hours and go home, you know, and get prepared for the next workday. Um, because I'm not trying to tell people how you should spend your leisure, but if it's affecting your employee and it'll resonate into other employees, even with the management, even with the employer, because she would come in toasted and ask me to help pick up the slack. You're a good worker and all this stuff, and I'm thinking, well, you went out and spent your entire night partying because they talked about it on the job, and now you want when you want to come to work not ready, and you want me to pick up the slack. So that means I got to work harder because you can't do yours. Um, so now I got a target on my back. Um, I'm verbally mistreated, and this and that, and I'll go to human resources and say, look, I'm being treated like this, and this is the reason why. And sometimes um, people bond, people choose sides in the employment. Sometimes they'll say, well, maybe it's you, or they'll run and tell their administration, yeah, maybe it's him, maybe he's the reason, this, that, and the third. And so in the end, it wound up being something I had to let go. Um, I had to walk away from, and it was good money, and I really regret doing that. But I value, as a lot of people do, I value my health and well-being way over my employment. I value that more than anything. I'm not a young kid anymore, So I want I want I want to be in an environment that's productive, that of course pays good, but that when I get up, I'm glad to get up and do it. We shouldn't have employers abuse us in any kind of way, not verbally. If something is going wrong if they're in charge, if something's going wrong, especially in the retail arena, you don't take it out on employees. You don't verbally abuse them, or all of a sudden your demeanor changes and you're not the free spirited person you were. We have issues that happen in our lives. I get that, but when you're in charge, you don't trickle that down into your staff or administration. Or in my case, because I don't work for the places we commercially clean, but you want to change your whole attitude and treat us like trash all of a sudden, you know. And it's not fair because you did something wrong. Your administration jumped on you, so you want to take it out on us, and we don't even work for you. We work for your company, and that's who hired us and contracted us and things like that. But you want to be bitter because sales are off and all of that, and I'll take it out on the cleaning guy. And recently that's what's been happening, and I was really really in a position to just walk away, um, because I value, and I can't say it enough. I value health and well-being over anything. You can't, if you're not in good health, and you're stressed, going to work's not going to be a pleasant experience. I get it. The bills got to be paid and food's got to be placed on the table. I totally get that. But also, you got to have peace of mind. Um, and I applaud those who find careers that they're comfortable with. Um, I applaud those who find careers that that they love going to, that they love putting in the overtime. They love sticking it through, as compared to um, doing 9 to 5ers and you complain about it. I remember when I used to catch public transportation. What was I doing then? I was working for, I can't remember. It was for some retailer I was working for, um, on a junior management level, and it was outside. I mostly worked outside the city a lot, and I remember these two people were talking, and they were talking about how bad the job was, as far as, because people make the job. It's not that I can dig a ditch, and if I'm around quality people, I'm around people that I'm comfortable with, And even though it's a taking job, and if it pays well and I'm doing it, I can be happy doing it because the atmosphere is good. But these two individuals, they were talking about how bad the job is. And I said, wow, I'm glad. You almost feel like, hey, I'm glad I'm not doing that for a living because the way they were just so and so does this and the boss is this and this and this and this and that. I think if a job and they were very verbal about it. They were very um, outspoken about this job they were headed to. Early in that morning, it was like maybe 7 a.m. And I'm thinking, could I even for good money, could I tolerate a job like that? Tolerate, according to them, the abuse from administration like that. Um, Sometimes it's time, especially when you're younger. Sometimes it's time to make a career change. Um, I've had I've worked again. I was a manager for a fast food company, and I worked. And the owner decided to sell. We were like a family. He decided to sell his store to a larger conglomerate, and we were like family. We had a celebration. Everybody was crying, and I mean, but he treated people with respect. Um, you needed something from him, you could get it. If your car breaks down, he'll put it in the shop for you, and you pay him back and pay. I had that happen. I had a clunker of a car at the time, and he said, "Tom, put it in the shop. I'll loan you one of mine." And that's very extreme for someone to go to that route. But for him, it was the type of person he is. Um, he was a wonderful person to work for. You would come in on your off day if he needed you because you enjoyed the atmosphere. Um, and believe me, working in fast food business, whether you're the cashier, the manager, crew chief, or whoever, it is stressful. It's personalities you deal with each and every day. But we made it into like a family setting. Um, Profits were excellent. We get huge bonuses in Christmas, like $2,000 bonuses, things like that. Um, it was wonderful when he sold it, and he sold it to another owner operator. Um, it all changed. They were very militant. They didn't have that family demeanor. Um, of course, they have their own way of doing things, but all of the bond just went away, and a lot of us were feeling it, and we were like, wow, he's really different. And it's not to insult him. I get it. He's a businessman. He owned a lot of other networks, and a chain of stores, and he added this to his list. But he didn't give you the feel that you wanted to come in and God forbid when something went wrong, and no matter how minor, he'd bite your head off. I mean, I'm talking about managers' heads off. Something. What if things happen on the job? But where I'm going with all of this is that he made it so uncomfortable that me and a lot of others decided to do something different. We decided to take on a different career. I wasn't quite ready to go back to school yet and earn degrees. So I took on other retail positions. I became a district supervisor for Super Value Corporation, and I was lucky to get that. It made it a lot less stressful, but it's nothing like doing something that you're comfortable with. And people say, "Oh yeah, that was McDonald's job. It was this and that," but I was extremely comfortable working for that owner operator because he made it comfortable. We made great money. Um, you go over his house and eat, and he had dinners or barbecues. I'm not saying all employers are going to be that flexible, but he knew the job was a stressful one. He knew you get different personalities in the job. You got employees who may go at each other and become uncomfortable with working with certain people. But we would sit together and we would all. We even had disagreements with each other. It was talked about like family. We had this it was almost like Blue Bloods, where they sit around the dinner table and have these discussions. Not to that extreme, but that's the only example I could think of that popped into my head. But where I'm going with it is that it was a good atmosphere to work under, and I think I mean, I can't see doing a job you can't stand for a long, long time. But even worse, and people make the job. It's I don't care if I dig holes in the ground for a living, but I work for an employer that's special. and I'm comfortable. That's fine. It's because people make these jobs up. The administration makes these jobs up. When you work under the thumb of somebody that's verbally abusive, and even for you ladies that work under males that want to be aggressive and want to try to get you to do things that aren't that aren't under the job title. I've sat and talked with women who are get sexually abused or verbally, and if not in other ways, on jobs where guys think, "Oh, I'm your supervisor. You need to do this and help me out with this, or can I take you out?" And you just there to come make some money to take care of you and yours. Um, I can't tell you how many ladies I've spoken to in um, therapy sessions, as an internist, that the guy's touchy feely, or he grabbed my breast, or and all of this kinds of stuff. And I'm blessed that we live in a society that we don't have to tolerate that. It's more outspoken. You can put it. We have social media like I'm talking on now. We can put it out there where people don't, where the abuse can stop. Um, there are certain groups that you can participate and support that don't have to take abuse from jobs. No one. We go to make money and take care of our own. We shouldn't have to tolerate the abuse that goes along with it from people that want to wave titles in our faces, or they're the boss, and whatever. We shouldn't have to put up with that. And I used to watch on certain jobs that I was on, women go in a corner and cry and all of this, and I'm thinking, what's going on? Because he won't go out, because this supervisor, you won't go out with him because you're not that type of person. Want to cut your hours and do under pull the rug from underneath you, and it happens. It happens a lot more than is exposed. Um, for anybody going through that, female or male, anybody going through that, always get some support, um, because nobody should have to stomach an environment that's uncomfortable. Nobody should, um, especially when it's sexual harassment on the jobs. Nobody should put up with that. Um, but nobody should also put up with this with employees who don't who and I get it, especially in the retail arena. It's tough. It's you got to make it. You might got to make your quarters, and you got to make your quotas. You got to have your shrinkage down and all of that. I've been in retail. God, before I started doing what I'm doing now, or even the degrees, I've been in retail for I could say a good 20 years prior to that, maybe 25. And I've pretty much seen a lot. I've seen the pressure that bosses put on employees for either their own personal gain, such as, I want to take out this girl, I'll hire her and she needs I gave you the job, you should hook up with me, and all of these things. I've watched these things happen. Um, and I've watched good people get bashed and battered, um, just for doing their job, you know? And for a while you get scared. You don't want to really be, it's unfair how some people are treated, but you get scared that you may not want to interact because you don't want to lose your position. And I've been in that boat, and I'm ashamed to say that I've been in a boat where I've watched unfairness happen on the job, and I kept quiet and I didn't say anything because I didn't. Don't open your mouth, Tom. You could get fired too. That kind of thing. And I think as employees, we need to stick together if those issues are happening on the job. But sometimes it's like, crabs in the barrel. People want to, um, take care of themselves. They don't want to get involved. They don't care if those employees not bothering me. I don't care. And you don't want to watch it happen to anyone, and you definitely don't want to be the next person it happens to. Um, so we have to inject ourselves when employers are 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 treating us poorly or something. We need to bond. We need to. It's a collective. It's strength in numbers. As a collective, if you're having issues with an employer, excuse me, on a job, and they simply are stubborn or not listening, you gotta support your coworker and stand next to them. Easy to say, hard to do when you think it's going to affect your lifestyle and your job uh, security. And I get it. And that's what made me scared for years. Would I do that today? Of course, I would. If I saw an employee being, if I was on a particular job and I saw an employee getting either verbal abuse or something, and they needed support, I'd support them today because you grow and you learn those things. We shouldn't take abuse from employees. Everybody works hard. Everybody works towards a common goal, and that's for every company that you work for. That's to help that company grow. You want to be an asset, not a liability to the company. But you want it to be you want to be an asset that's comfortable. You don't want to be into into a job site where it's uncomfortable, where getting up for work is stressful. Getting up for work, oh God, another, over the hump and all of this kind of stuff. Um, it's, I mean, it's tough. I try to I try to look at both sides of it. I I I sympathize with the person that I've been in charge, and I've been in a position where I had the employer be in charge. Um, so I get both sides of the street. I get it. Sometimes a job can be stressful for those in charge. You have so many hats to wear. But understand something here. You made the decision to be that boss. Um, Treating people like trash because things go awry isn't helping. Isn't or trying to insert yourself on a job site to try to be this czar or this militant person. Isn't good for the morale of the job. It's just not good. Um, we get it. You may have a quarter that your employer says, especially, and I'm always referring to the retail side of things. Um, you may have you may have a job. You may work somewhere where the sales are down, and he's pissed, and now he gets his head bitten off by his higher ups, and he wants to take it out on you. Um, and it's just not fair. It's not right. But I get it. I've been in charge and things didn't go right, but I've never in no way, shape, or form abused employees verbally or any other kind of way because I had to look at my part in taking a position maybe that was too big for me, or I just simply couldn't handle. So I had to take responsibility when things went wrong. I have the employee I was talking about for the McDonald's I used to work for used to say they're not. He said I watched a movie one time. We were having a casual conversation. He said I watched a movie one time, and the character in the movie said it's not. You don't have a bad crew. You have. It was called G.I. Jane was the movie he said he was watching when it was out back then. That's how long ago it's been. And he said the character told another character it's not bad crew. It's bad leaders. And he was expressing that to me that um, what you instill in your crew will show in their work performance and things like that if you treat them like people. And I've always kept that in my mind. I said whether I'm people working underneath me or whatever, I've always kept that perspective that if things go wrong, I got to look at me first. And if I have a staff and things went south or um, business is low. I got to look at my input. I don't go run to the crew. Why aren't you more productive? What the f is wrong with you? And all of these kinds of things because of my decisions. Um, so I've ran with that in every endeavor that I've gone into. Even when I was an undergrad, and we used to put on PowerPoints for psychology courses because one of my degrees is in psychology and the other's in statistics. And we used to put on we should have to pick a leader. And sometimes I get chosen, probably because at that time I was the oldest student, and we bounce ideas off each other as academics. But I would make decisions, and some people wouldn't be comfortable with this decision. But I didn't. This wasn't even. We were students. This wasn't even being an employer. It was just um, when I saw that they were uncomfortable. I took them out to eat and said, let's talk about it in a different environment, and because we got to get this project in, and so I look for another as the person in charge, if you will. I look for another angle to have everybody relax. Talk about the Red Lobster. let them have eat, have eat to their heart's delight, and then we discuss the plan. And some people say, "Well, that's extreme. I wouldn't have done it." But our production received an A because one, we talked it over. Two, we talked it over in an environment that made everybody comfortable. And three, um, we came to a solution. And I say that to say about employers. This is not just for us employees; it's also for employers. Treat them like family. You know, you'll get more production out of people you treat with respect than you do when you treat them if you treat them with disrespect. You gotta treat them. You gotta treat them like family. You gotta give them an opportunity to produce. And not everything's going to go proper on a work site, whether you're employer, employee, whatever. But if you come together and talk it through, communication, I think, is essential. Um, you're going to get some employers that is just so rigid that they're all they think about is profit or whatever the situation is, or they run with a title. I had a guy had a title something scientist in a job. It didn't mean that he was an actual degree scientist. He made like $7 an hour, but he ran with this title because he was in charge. And I remember we used to. That was one of the times we used to all go out after work and do things like do recreational things. And when he met someone, especially when he met a female, he would fill this title up. And by by listening to the title, it sounded like he had made these vast accomplishments, but he just there was no money behind it. So they would go, "Wow, you do that," and he put the scientist thing on the end of whatever I forgot what he did, but it was something. It was just a title more than it was anything else, and he would run with it. He would say, "I'm the such and such scientist," which made everybody think he was this PhD running around making six figures and all this. Um, but he wasn't. What he used to do, he was in charge of a certain part of the department, and because he's the scientist, so to speak, he played the part. I'm the such and such. He would bark at people. His whole demeanor changed. And I said, look, there's people that do things way without titles that's making more money than you. I finally had to tell him. But you're running with this title and you're abusing people with this title. It sounds good, but there's no paper behind it. And then he wanted to chew at me, and I said, listen, I don't work under you, so you can save all of that. We don't we don't need to be abused by employers. And employees, you don't need to abuse good crew people. You don't want high turnover anyway. Um, we need to respect and appreciate people on a job force because it's enough to have to work through this life. I wish I could hit the lottery, lay back on the beach and spend my twilight years in wealth and comfort. I don't see that happening. Um, so we got to get out and make it. And it's tough for us, especially for us blue collar folks. It's just really tough. Um, the school and the therapy thing is one thing. The cleaning thing is another thing. We're just trying to it, help our quality of life grow. But it's harder when we have to do it under stressful situations and uncomfortable situations with uncomfortable people in charge. Um, I think one of the people said, "Well, what's the answer?" And I think some of the answers are that we simply have to communicate more. Um, we have. I was telling my niece today or yesterday. I was telling her. I said sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. Um, no one wants to lose their job, but if you really have something that needs to be ran across that rigid employer, I think we need to take a leap of faith and run it across that person and say, I really think this is going on this way. And it's easy again. It's easy to say. It's hard to do because if they decide that you're not the employee for them, or they come up with some reason to try to dismiss you and dissolve your employment, um, then that's money out of your pocket. Advice is always easy because it's free. So, but but I get it when people don't want to assert themselves and don't want to get involved. Um, but in the last week or so, I've been in the venture that I'm in. Um, I've been getting abused, and even today I got some abuse from the. I got into it wasn't an argument, but it was just a heated discussion. I'll put it that way, over something trivial. And normally that's the genesis of it all. It's just real trivial issues. And I just wasn't in the mood for it. I was like, why are you? And I finally said, why are you attacking me this way? You made a move that lost us this, and now you're mad at me because I won't do this, and or and you've sold me like a slave down to this bank, and you want me to be you want to drive out into Timbuktu for pennies. And I just told her it just wasn't financially feasible. We got to look at how it's not. It's not that I don't want to do the work. It's simply that on certain sites, if it's just not profitable, if you're going to pay more to get to the site than you are earning money at the site, what's the point? And that's what I was trying to express. But they looked at the total financial side of everything and not the practical and stressful side. Driving stressful. I don't care if your car is brand new, the late model, and all of that. Driving's a job in itself, especially when you got to drive outside the city. I don't care. New car, still. It's still the work of driving that car. Especially in inclement weather if it snows. You know. So um, I'm going to shut this down, and I thank the audience for listening. This is my pilot episode of talking. I was half prepared tonight, but all these work issues had come up, so I figured that would be the thing I would touch upon. What's going on in the workforce? If you work for a stressful employer, and 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 they're very rigid and they're very demeaning. If you have to even find an outside group to help you get support, or if you have to do a career change, easy to say, not easy to do. Consider it, because none of us needs to be abused in any way, shape, or form in a job. We're all humane. We're all people just trying to make a living. No one should be, no one should have to put up with a lot of abuse and tolerate it on the work site. This is Uncle Tommy Speaks. I want to thank you all for chiming in. I want to thank my niece for putting me on this. And everybody, God bless, sleep well, and have a good work day tomorrow. Thank you.